and welcome back to my channel. I'm Shauna and thanks for being here. Today is Terrific Tuesday. I hope your Tuesday is going terrifically so far, and if not, I hope it ends well. Well, look at that. Today is the last Tuesday in April. Today is April 29th. So wow, we've just got finished with April. And without further ado, let's just say our prayer and get going. There's so much to review. Lord, thank you for every single soul who can hear my voice. Thank you for this platform, and thank you for your wonderful words that you left behind for us to gain insight, inspiration, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. In Jesus' name, amen. And by that, I mean the Bible. All right, friends. Well, most of you know I was on a little mini vacation. I wouldn't even call it that. I was just on a trip for the weekend, and I just recorded my show. So if you watch from Friday to yesterday, you'll see it was just like a pre-recording, but it was the actual reading. So I feel really good about that. We are on track with our chronological reading. So far, we've read every single day. All right, so here's a quick review from Friday, because I wanted to just do a little recap just to better understand where we are and before we pick up today. So 2 Samuel chapter 11, we saw it was about David, Uriah, and Bathsheba, as we know, and then Joab, the commander of David's army. So Uriah was a Hittite warrior in David's army, and David, after seeing his wife on the roof taking a bath, he sent for her, and they began this sinful affair, and she became pregnant. And to cover it up, we saw David do a despicable, diabolical, treacherous deed by sending for his Uriah. And he at first was just trying to get him to go and sleep with his wife so they can just say that, Bathsheba was pregnant by him. But he's like, no, my men are in war, in battle right now, sleeping in tents. How could I go and lay with my wife? And so he refused. And so now David had to have a backup plan, because trying to get him to sleep with his own wife didn't work. So he called for Joab, the commander of his army, and told him to put Uriah on the front lines in front of all the valiant warriors so that he could be killed in war. And Joab listened, and he did it. So very, very sad, but God was not displeased, and that's how the chapter ended, in those words. God was displeased with David. He was displeased, rather. All right, and then 2 Samuel chapter 12, we saw Nathan the prophet came and confronted David about his dirty deed, and he sent a message from God in the form of a parable. And he told that the parable of the ewe lamb, and the ewe lamb is a baby lamb. And so he's saying how, you had this rich man who had plenty of lamb and sheep and oxen, but he took his servant's little tiny ewe lamb. And David said, who's this despicable person? He should be killed and have to pay fourfold. And Nathan said, the man is you, because David had all these wives, all these concubines, and he looks over and sees the beauty of Bathsheba and wanted her too, just gluttonous. So David was cursed. In fact, he had 3 curses. The curse of the sword, saying that violence and the sword would continually be on his household. Men would publicly take his wives and concubines. And lastly, that his child that he had with Bathsheba, the firstborn, was going to die. And that's exactly what happened. And then after that child died, David did fast and prayed the whole time the child was sick, 7 days. And then the child died out on the 7th day, and David accepted the punishment. And then after that, they had Solomon, which we know is going to be the next king. So that's how chapter 12 basically ended. Chapter 13, 2 Samuel 13, we saw another despicable act by Ammon. He raped his sister. She's a half-sister, but they're all David's kids. So they're all brother and sister, whether half or whole. So Ammon raped his sister, and then Absalom sought revenge, because Absalom and Tabor were whole sisters. So he had a lot of love for his sister. They had the same mother and the same father, King David. And so after careful planning, 2 years later, so 2 years after the rape, is when Absalom took revenge on his half-brother Ammon for raping their sister Tamar. So that's how 2 Samuel 13 went. 2 Samuel 14, we saw that David longed for his son Absalom because Absalom was on the run. Because after Absalom killed his brother Ammon, he, ran into the wilderness for fear of revenge for killing his brother, his half-brother. And so Joab had a plan to find Absalom, and then once he got Absalom, he brought Absalom back, and he lived in Jerusalem for 2 years without seeing his father, King David. And then Absalom, he grew, like he started missing his dad. And so he went to Joab and said, hey, get a word to my father. But Joab had ignored him for a little while. So to get Joab's attention, I thought this was funny. Absalom set his field on fire. So after Absalom set Joab's field on fire, he brought news to King David that, hey, your son wants to reconcile with you. And so Absalom was able to see his father after that time. And something that I found interesting is how in 2 Samuel 14, verse 25 specifically, it describes Absalom's beauty, his outer beauty on the outside, said that he was the most handsome man in all of Israel, with no blemish on him from head to toe. And it reminded me instantly of King Saul. Remember, King Saul was described as being a handsome, tall and handsome man with broad shoulders. And now we see another outward beauty description here in Absalom. And it's kind of making me wonder, is Absalom's beauty just on the outside? Is he rotten to the core like Saul ended up being? So I think we'll continue to vet that out. But chapter 14 ended with David forgiving Absalom. And then 2 Samuel 15, Absalom, David's handsome son, betrays him. So David forgave him in chapter 14, and he probably shouldn't have, because Absalom betrays David and tries to take his kingdom away from him. And one way that he did that was it says he captured the hearts of persons or people or of men, however you want to see it. And so he was kissing the men when they came to see David about being judged on some offense or something, because David was the king, so he was judging them. He would kiss the men, and he would have the men become favorite to him. Absalom did. And so Absalom, he had a lot of pride too, because it said that he had a posse of chariots and horses and 50 men. So before you saw him, you saw this entourage. So he was handsome, but it seems like he wasn't a good person down on the inside, even though I thought good of him at first because he sought the revenge for his sister's rape. So I kind of thought he was a good guy. But as we continue to read and he betrays his own father, we're starting to see. And maybe that goes back to David's gluttony, having all those wives and concubines. It definitely goes back to the curse, because God already said your house is going to be cursed with the sword. So it's just going to be fighting and betrayal now in David's household. And I think that's what we're seeing here with Absalom. All right. And so chapter 15 ended with David fleeing Jerusalem with his household, because Absalom had declared himself king in Hebron, and David decided he was going to leave because a lot of David's people were standing behind Absalom at this point. All right, and then 2 Samuel 16, David's household was in the wilderness, and they fled Jerusalem. And then Ziba, which is Mephibosheth's guardian, I guess you could say, because remember, Mephibosheth was Jonathan's son. And David showed kindness to Jonathan's son by letting him eat at the king's table all night and giving him all of King Saul's wealth, because that's Saul's grandson. And so his guardian, if you will, Ziba, servant is what he was. His servant betrayed him because he lied to David and told David that Mephibosheth was trying to get his kingdom when he wasn't. And so we'll see that a little later. And then Absalom, also to pronounce himself as king of Israel, he went to David's kingdom and slept with the concubines that he left behind, which confirms that curse that we saw in chapter 12, because it said in chapter 12 that he was going to, the public will have his concubines and wives. So there you go, his own son sleeping with his remaining concubines in public on the roof, so that everyone can see that he's the king now. All right, 2 Samuel 17, we saw that Ahithophel counseled Absalom to send 12,000 men to kill David. So Absalom does have some of David's former, councilmen and people that were formerly in his camp now standing behind his son Absalom. So this one person, I'm sure I'm not saying his name right, Ahithophel counseled Absalom and trying to get him to kill his father. But Hushai, who is an informant, Hushai is actually in David's camp, but he's pretending to be in Absalom's camp just to get the intel so that he can warn David as to the movements that his son is making. And so, long story short, Absalom went with the counsel of Hushai instead of Ahithophel, and Ahithophel ended up hanging himself because he probably sees that, well, if Absalom isn't going to go with my plan, then David already knows that he betrayed him, so he probably feel like his life is over, because either way he doesn't have, neither king is basically covering for him or protecting him, so he killed himself. So we saw a suicide there in chapter 17. And then 2 Samuel 18 was all about the battle between Absalom's army and David's army. And so in the forest of Ephraim, the two armies went to battle, and then basically Absalom was hung by his hair in the tree. And remember when in the other chapter, was it where they talked about his handsomeness? So yep, in chapter 14, not only did it say that he was handsome, it described his very long hair, and he only cut his hair once a year. Well, that came into play in chapter 18, because when he was on his little donkey, he got caught in a tree by his hair. And so he's hanging, picture him suspended in the air by his hair, because the donkey kept going and left him hung in the tree. And so one of Joab's army people went and told Joab he's hanging in the tree, and Joab was like, Joab was like, why didn't you kill him? So Joab went and got 3 swords and killed him in the heart and killed him himself, because his army, his sergeant was like, I'm not killing him, because King David said, be kind to, be gentle with Absalom. He actually commanded the army before his army to be gentle with Absalom. And so that one army person was like, I'm not killing him, but Joab's like, I'll get him. So Joab went and didn't have a hesitation. He killed him with 3 swords and killed him right in the heart while he was suspended in air by his hair. Ooh, that was brutal, huh? And then 2 Samuel 18 ended with David mourning for his son Absalom. And then that brings us to 2 Samuel 19. Joab was mad at David. He's like, how you gonna mourn for him when he tried to kill you? We're out here risking our life, fighting their army, and our men is dying, and you over here crying over your treacherous son? So the commander, Joab, rebuked David, and demanded that he go and address the army and basically, congratulate them and thank them for what he did, and not hide in the roof, hide in the room crying over your son. So that's what David did. He wiped his tears and went and addressed his army. So that is an extensive review since Friday, because I wanted to, just really, really bring us up to par and understand what was going on. All right, for my own business, if nothing else. All right. So that brings us to our reading today. Our chronological Bible reading for today starts with 2 Samuel chapter 19, verse 31. Verse 31. Now Barzillai the Gileonite had come down from Rogelim, and he went on with the king to the Jordan to escort him over the Jordan. Barzillai was a very aged man, 80 years old. He had provided the king with food while he had stayed at Mahanaim, for he was a very wealthy man. And the king said to Barzillai, "Come over with me, and I will provide for you with me in Jerusalem." But Barzillai said to the king, "How many years have I still to live that I should go up with the king to Jerusalem? I am this day 80 years old. Can I discern what is pleasant and what is not? Can your servant taste what he eats or what he drinks? Can I still listen to the voice of singing men and singing women? Why then should your servant be an added burden to my lord the king? Your servant will go a little way over the Jordan with the king. Why should the king repay me with such a reward?" 37. "Please let your servant return that I may die in my own city near the grave of my father and my mother. But here is your servant Chimham. Let him go over with my lord the king and do for him whatever seems good to you." And the king answered, "Chimham shall go over with me, and I will do for him whatever seems good to you, and all that you desire of me I will do for you." Then all the people went over the Jordan, and the king went over, and the king kissed Barzillai and blessed him, and he returned to his own home. The king went on to Gilgal, and Chimham went on with him. All the people of Judah and also the half of the people of Israel brought the king on his way. 41. Then all the men of Israel came to the king and said to the king, "Why have our brothers, the men of Judah, stolen you away and brought the king and his household over the Jordan, and all David's men with him?" All the men of Judah answered the men of Israel, "Because the king is our close relative. Why then are you angry over this matter? Have we eaten at all at the king's expense? Or has he given us any gift?" And the men of Israel answered the men of Judah, "We have 10 shares in the king, and the king also we have more than you. Why then did you despise us? Were we not the first to speak of bringing back our king?" But the words of the men of Judah were fiercer than the words of the men of Israel. So, they're arguing about who's going to escort David back to his kingdom in Jerusalem. All right, we'll keep going. I'll summarize this tomorrow. I just want to get our reading out the way because we already had a very detailed summary that brought us up to date. 2 Samuel 20, the rebellion of Sheba. Now there happened to be there a worthless man whose name was Sheba, the son of Beruchi the Benjaminite. And he blew the trumpet and said, "We have no portion in David, and we have no inheritance in the son of Jesse. Every man to his tent, O Israel." So all the men of Israel withdrew from David and followed Sheba, the son of Bichai. But the men of Judah followed their king steadfastly from the Jordan to Jerusalem. So the people of Israel withdrew, but the men of Judah stayed with the king. 3. And David came to the house at Jerusalem, and the king took the 10 concubines whom he had left to care for the house and put them in the house under guard and provided for them. But he did not go into them. So they were shut up until the day of their death, living as if in widowhood. And remember, those are the concubines that his son Absalom violated while he was in the wilderness. David came back and was like, "I don't want them anymore." But he still provided for them, but they lived probably a solitude life until they died, as if they were widows. Man, that's sad. 4. Then the king said to Amasa, "Call the men of Judah together to me within 3 days and be here yourself." So Amasa went to summon Judah, but he delayed beyond the set time that he had been appointed to him. And David said to Abishai, "Now Sheba the son of Beerchai will do us more harm than Absalom. Take your Lord's servant and pursue him, lest he get himself to fortified cities and escape from us." And there went out after him Joab's men and the Cherethites and the Pelethites and all the mighty men. They went out from Jerusalem to pursue Sheba the son of Beerchai. 8. When they were at the great stone that is in Gibeon, Amasa came to meet them. Now Joab was wearing a soldier's garment, and over it was a belt with a sword in its sheath fastened on its side. And as he went forward, it fell out. And Joab said to Amasa, "Is it well with you, my brother?" And Joab took Amasa by the beard with his right hand to kiss him. But Amasa did not observe the sword that was in Joab's hand. So Joab struck him with it in the stomach and spilled his entrails to the ground without striking a second blow, and he died. Then Joab and Abishai the brother pursued Sheba the son of Birchi, and one of Joab's young men took his stand by Amasa and said, "Whoever favors Joab and whoever is for David, let him follow Joab." And Amasa lay wallowing in his blood in the highway, and anyone who came by, seeing him, stopped. And when the men saw that all the people stopped, he carried Amasa out of the highway into the field and threw a garment over him. When he was taken out of the highway, all the people went on after Joab to pursue Sheba the son of Birchai. 14. And Sheba passed through all the tribes of Israel to Abel of Beshmaachah, and all the Bircharites assembled and followed him in. And all the men who were with Joab came and besieged him in Abel of Bethmaachah. They cast up a mound against the city, and it stood against the rampart, and they were battering the wall to throw it down. 16. Then a wise man called from the city, "Listen, listen, tell Joab, come here, that I may speak to you." And he came near here. And the women said, "Are you Joab?" He answered, "I am." Then she said to him, "Listen to the words of your servant." And he answered, "I'm listening." Then she said, "They used to say in former times, 'Let them but ask counsel at Abel,' and so they settled a matter. I am one of those who are peaceable and faithful in Israel. You seek to destroy a city that is a mother in Israel. Why will you swallow up the heritage of the Lord?" 20. Joab answered, "Far be it from me, far be it that I should swallow up or destroy. That is not true. But a man of the hill country of Ephraim called Sheba the son of Birchai has lifted up his hand against King David. Give him alone, and I will withdraw from the city." And the woman said to Joab, "Behold, his head shall be thrown to you over the wall." Then the woman went to all the people in her wisdom, and they cut off the head of Sheba the son of Birchi and threw it out to Joab. So she blew the trumpet, and they dispersed from the city, every man to his home, and Joab returned to Jerusalem to the king. 23. Now Joab was in command of all the army of Israel, and Benaiah the son of Jehoiada was in command of Cherethites and the Pelethites, and Adoram was in charge of the forced labor, and Jehoshaphat the son of Eliud was the recorder, and Sheba was secretary, and Zadok and Abiathar were priests, and Ira and Jerite was also David's priest. Oh my goodness. All right, I'll wait for a summary tomorrow. Let's just get our reading out the way for today. It takes us to Psalm 7, Psalm chapter 7. In you do I take refuge. O Lord, my God, in you I do take refuge. Save me from all my pursuers and deliver me, lest like a lion they tear my soul apart, rendering it in pieces with none to deliver. O Lord, my God, if I have done this, if there is wrong in my hands, if I have repaid my friend with evil or plundered my enemy without cause, let the enemy pursue my soul and overtake it, and let him trample my life to the ground and lay my glory to the dust. Selah. Arise, O Lord, in your anger. Lift yourself up against the fury of my enemies. Await for me. You have appointed a judgment. Let the assembly of the people be gathered about you. Over it return on high. The Lord judges the peoples. Judge me, O Lord, according to my righteousness and according to the integrity that is in me. Oh, let the evil of the wicked come to an end, and you may establish the righteous, who you test the minds and hearts. O righteous God, my shield is with God, who saves the upright in heart. God is a righteous judge, and a God who feels indignation every day. 12. If a man does not repent, God will whet his sword. He has bit and readied his bow. He has prepared for him his deadly weapons, making his arrows fiery shafts. Behold, the wicked man conceives evil and is pregnant with mischief and gives birth to lies. He makes a pit, digging it out, and falls into the hole that he has made. His mischief returns upon his own head, and on his own skull his violence descends. It will give to the Lord the thanks due to his righteousness, and I will sing praise to the name of the Lord, the Most High. That was a Shiggaion of David, which he sang to the Lord concerning the words of Cush, a Benjaminite. All right. Ooh-wee. I got the windows closed and you can hear all that nonsense. 2 Samuel 21. David avenges the Gibeonites. Now there was a famine in the days of David for 3 years, year after year. And David sought the face of the Lord, and the Lord said, there is blood guilt on Saul and on his house, because he put the Gibeonites to death. So the king called the Gibeonites and spoke to them. Now the Gibeonites were not of the people of Israel, but of the remnant of the Amorites, although the people of Israel had sworn to spare them. Saul had sought to strike them down in his zeal for the people of Israel and Judah. And David said to the Gibeonites, what shall I do for you, and how shall I make atonement that you may bless the heritage of the Lord? For the Gibeonites said to him, it is not a matter of silver or gold between us and Saul or his house, neither is it for us to put any man to death in Israel. And he said, what do you say that I shall do for you? They said to the king, the man who consumed us and planned to destroy us so that we should have no place in all the territory of Israel. Let 7 of his sons be given to us so that we may hang them before the Lord at Gibeah of Saul, the chosen of the Lord. And the king said, I will give them. 7. But the king spared Mephibosheth, the son of Saul's son Jonathan, because of the oath of the Lord that was between them, between David and Jonathan, the son of Saul. The king took the 2 sons of Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, whom she bore to Saul, Amari and Mephibosheth, and the 5 sons of Merab, the daughter of Saul, whom she bore to Andriel, the son of Barzillai, the Meholite. 9. And he gave them into the hands of the Gibeonites, and they hanged them on the mountain before the Lord, and the 7 of them perished together. They were put to death in the first days of harvest, at the beginning of the barley harvest. 10. Then Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, took sackcloth and spread it for herself on the rock from the beginning of the harvest until rain fell upon them from the heavens. And she did not allow the birds of the air to come upon them by day, or the beasts of the field by night. When David was told what Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, the concubine of Saul, had done, David went and took the bones of Saul and the bones of his son Jonathan from the men of Jabesh Gilead, who had stolen them from the public square of Bethshan, where the Philistines had hanged them on the day of the Philistines killed Saul on Gilboa. 13. And he brought up from there the bones of Saul and the bones of his son Jonathan, and they gathered the bones of those who were hanged, and they buried the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan in the land of Benjamin, in Zelah, in the tomb of Kish, his father. And they did all that the king commanded, and after that God responded to the plea for the land. 15. The war with the Philistines. Those Philistines again? I thought we were done fighting them. There was war again between Philistines and Israel, and David went down together with his servants, and they fought against the Philistines. And David grew weary, and Ishbosheth, one of the descendants of the giants, whose spear weighed 300 shekels of bronze, and who was armed with a new sword, thought to kill David. But Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, came to his aid and attacked the Philistine and killed him. Then David's men swore to him, you shall no longer go out with us to battle, lest you quench the lamp of Israel. 18. After there, after this, there was again war with the Philistines at Gob. Then Sabichai the Hadushite struck down Spa, who was one of the descendants of the giants. And there was again war with the Philistines at Gob, and Elihan, the son of Jeroram, the Bethlehemite, struck down Goliath the Gittite, the shaft of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. And there was again war at Gath, where there was a man of great stature, who had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in number, and he also was descended from the giants. And he had taunted Israel. Jonathan, the son of Shimei, David's brother, struck him down. These 4 were descended from the giants in Gath, and they fell by the hand of David and by the hand of his servant. So remember, Goliath was a giant. So these are descendants of Goliath, and they were giants too. But they were slain by David and his men, just like Goliath was slain by David. Woo, here's our last reading. It's a paragraph. 1 Chronicles 20. It's probably going to repeat something we just read. 1 Chronicles 20, verse 4. And after this, there arose war with the Philistines at Gezer. Then Sabichai the Hushite struck down Sippai, who was one of the descendants of the giants, and the Philistines were subdued. And there was again war with the Philistines, and Elhanah the son of Jair struck down Lemi, the brother of Goliath the Gittite, the shaft of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. And there was again war at Gath, where there was a man of great stature, who had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in number, and he also was descended from the giants. And when he taunted Israel, Jonathan the son of Shimei, David's brother, struck him down. These were descended from the giants of Gath, and they fell by the hand of David and by the hand of his servants. All right, well, that was long, but we are all done with today's reading. I'll quickly go over some church announcements. Hey, family and friends back home. That's Youngstown, Ohio. 2 belated birthdays while I was gone. My dear friend Sawyer in Seattle. Hey, DJ. He had a birthday on the 26th. My sweet, sweet nephew Jojo turned 6. Happy birthday, Jojo. And my cousin Jerry, his birthday is today. So I'm all caught up with my Facebook birthdays. Happy birthday, Jerry. I'm proud of you, my cousin. Keep doing the most and doing your best. All right, everyone. That's all I have for today. Come back tomorrow and we'll see what we're reading tomorrow. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. Bye. Have a terrific Tuesday.